to do their campaigns. And, the reward is give them more pension, promise them more of this and that and the others. And that is what has occurred. Now let's make sure that the unions don't bankrupt the state. There's just so many states with budget problems.
It must be protester season because they're happening overseas. They're happening all over the world. They're happening right here at home, too.
That's right.
Well, moving on to other stories. This is probably nothing that would surprise you, but China has officially overtaken Japan as the #2 economy in the world. And not only that, but it is poised to take over the U.S. as the largest economy in just one decade, which is quite an astounding figure. And part of the reason for that is because China has actually invested a lot in its people, starting with their elementary education, with their middle school education, really trying to get their people to become economic vessels for them. And it's succeeding. It has a very rich middle class that is evolving, that is spending like American consumers are spending. And over time, all of that money that's coming in from other countries, from all the exports, you're seeing China actually evolve into a very, very dominant force, not just in the eastern side of the world, but pretty soon it's going to challenge the West for all that it can do.
China took a chapter from the United States book and actually went into so many different countries and bought up so many assets, promised to help the African countries and South American countries. They're in there, and folks, they're exporting goods up there. They're building their economy. Today, though, American economy is 3 times bigger than China.
But we have
today
a much smaller population than China. So if you imagine that their middle class, if it keeps growing at the rate that they're growing, that middle class will outpopulate the U.S. population.
That is true. And, of course, the irony is that these are the American companies who have gone over there and built that economy.
Unfortunately, India has taken quite a lot of heat for not being able to keep up with the likes of China in doing that same kind of investment into its people. Now, this was an article that appeared in the New York Times. It's called, Galloping Growth, but there is still hunger in India. Despite all of the progress India has made as a comparison to China, it's always being brought up as being, at points, even a faster growing economy than China. But the reality is India still struggles to feed its 1.1 billion people. And that's a very basic, fundamental form of being taken care of. And the Indian government, in particular, has been criticized harshly for not doing what it can to support services at a very basic level for the lowest tier citizen within its countries. And that is everything from infrastructure, which we frequently talk about here on the show, but even civic services, trash collection, making sure that its imports and exports are reaching all of the people where they need to reach. There's just not the kind of government support for these programs that's vitally needed. And so I think that's why you're seeing, wrapped up into this sentiment, a lot of criticism of just the corruption in India, because the money just does not seem to make it down to where it needs to be.
Did you see the Prime Minister's press conference? Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had a press conference last week, and some of the things that he said amazed me. Seems like he's so unaware of all the corruption that is going on in his cabinet. Personally, he has not had a shadow of any corruption on him. But folks, it's happening in his cabinet. So many ministers are on the hook. I mean, when I read this, amazes me that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is talking about, we are weakening the self-confidence of the people of India. I don't think that is in the interest of anybody that is in our country. We have a functioning government. We take our job very seriously. We are here to govern and govern effectively. He's talking about as if he's blaming media for pointing out about all this corruption.
When India lost Rajiv Gandhi, it went through a series of governments that came in and out, BJP among them, then other Congress party was in there too. And so with this turmoil, he emerged as the one guy to lead India forward. And he was a very respected figure. He has a background in the economy. He has a background in economics. So he was the right leader for India at the time. But I think India has now moved on to its next set of challenges. There is enough of a middle class there to at least support some economic development of the country. now the country's looking for some social reform, looking
Yes.
for end to all of these old world practices. And I think Manmohan Singh, he is just, maybe it's a little bit too much to take on all at once. I think maybe we need new, fresh blood, new thinking. Let some of these CEOs and young owners, entrepreneurs into the government to try to fix, because I think they have new ideas. They just need the political platform.
That is right. Though India is doing very well. By the way, this week, BP bought a 30% interest in the Reliance Energy, which is Mukesh Ambani.
Very interesting, right? I mean,
$9 billion. That's a lot of money.
actually, that's going to be almost $20 billion over the course of time. And I read the same article, and I was very intrigued by what BP is doing. You know, they got a lot of negative press because of the oil spill. And a lot of it was, surrounding the U.S. So rather than focus their attention on the U.S., they have been quietly making deals with other countries on the European and on the Asian front. They made a deal with India. They also made a deal with Russia to do some exploration in the northern Arctic. So they're forming alliances, trying to come out of this negative publicity as a way to resurrect themselves and be well poised for where the energy needs are in the future.
But at the same time, Ambanis have been in the news. Anil Ambani was interviewed by CBI, which is called Central Bureau of Intelligence, in the case of Raja, the guy who sold the 2G spectrum to various companies. So his company has suffered like a 50% drop in the stock. Amazing stuff.
And by
now,
2G spectrum, you mean the wireless spectrum that is
right.
in India, so that
the
there's
cell
a lot
phone,
of
the cell phone bribery scandal, by its proper name, we should call it. And at the same time, you should take a look at Mukesh Ambani's yacht that was built in France. Amazing pictures, folks. And I want to tell you the dimensions of this yacht. It has 36,600 square feet of floor space. And it will accommodate 12 passengers and 20 crew members.
Wow, so that's more than one crew member dedicated to each person.
You know, it's just so beautiful. This yacht is going to be used by a lot of politicians and a lot of other rich people because that's what yacht is generally used for.
I know,
Business.
but you look at people who are rich here. You look at Richard Branson. You look at Donald Trump. I mean, they all have their, luxury pads. So India is just joining ranks with other millionaires and billionaires and playing in the very, big playground that is available to very rich, prominent entrepreneurs.
And they deserve it.